let's talk about fantasy football because, as we have mentioned already, Spence was the winner of fantasy football last season, and much to my not disgust, that's the wrong word. That's too strong a word. I was disappointed in myself actually, because I thought I at one point I thought I might actually steal a margin in there because I was breathing down your neck for about 5 or 6 game weeks towards the end of the season, and then the classic thing. It's very easy to forget fantasy football game week deadlines. It's very easy to forget anyway, but when you've got a small child, it's even easier to, you get distracted doing things, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, yep, there was a Friday game this week. I've now missed the. So what are your? Have you done a team? Have you done your first or second, third, fourth draft of the team for this year?
Yeah, so to be honest, this is the first time I've done it early. Normally I leave it last minute like everyone does and just stick some names together, see how they're getting on for a few weeks and then make some changes. And I can't remember the last time I ever had a decent start to a Premier League, Fantasy Premier League season. Normally it's just basically start off terrible, get a bit better every week. And that was the same last year, so I started off absolutely terrible and got quite a bit better every week, and by the end I think I was at 10,000 in the world or something. So I'm pretty pleased with that. That was my, when you like looking where we want to finish, that was kind of my target. I thought 10k in the world sounds quite good if there's about 15 million people playing. Yeah, I got there in the end. Generally, most people just think of fantasy football and I think the first week is everything. But in fact, the first week is just basically, it's just like any other week. It doesn't really matter. But most people just think that you can win it or lose it in the first week. You can't. You need to get a stable team, balanced with some differentials in there, but with some like firm players in there. And you just need to pick your pick who you're going to rely on basically, and build a team around it. And that's what I've done. And I think this year the main talking point and the main strategy, I guess, is like your big dogs like Haaland and Salah and Trent. Do you go with them or do you go with your people like your Palmers or your your Sakas, your Arsenal defence? You can't get all of them, and I think it's actually I think it's going to be quite good this year because it's all about it's not about getting all of the big guys in to start with. It's about picking and choosing when you choose them. And looking at the fixture lists and trying to plan ahead instead of just going one game, just like all or nothing, all in. And if you lose, you go, I can't bother playing this game anymore. So yeah, I've got a team, and I'm sure it'll change quite a few times in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. You and me both. That's. Have you done your
Me
team?
3. Yeah, I actually did mine today. Because I'm part of the Wakefield Everton supporters group, and they decided that they were actually we had to have a team name that was related to an ex-player. So I've been waiting for them to give me the ex-player. I got Stephen Pienaar. There's nothing funny I can make from that player's name. It's physically impossible.
Pina Colada.
Yeah, it's been a little bit overdone. So yeah, I decided against that one. Went with the Everton chant that we used to sing. But yeah, I've done it today. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I'm probably going to change that before the start of the season. But this is a novel thing for me because I don't normally do the team before the start of the season. I'm usually like week 2, week 3, trying to play catch up. So I'm ahead of the game for once. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you look at the likes of Cole Palmer and you think, what a great season he had last year. Is he going to have that same season again? Do I go for Haaland, who he did okay last season, but he didn't set the world alight. But can you really afford to not have him in? And similar, Ollie Watkins, great season last season. From the attacking point of view, who do you go from the goalkeeping point of view? I've gone for Pickford because he was probably one of the most solid goalkeepers last season with the amount of clean sheets. Is that going to translate this season? I think the first 1, 2, 3, 4, probably even 5, 6 weeks, you're not really going to know who's going to be getting what they did last season. I
think you have to move quick.
So hard.
That's what I've noticed the last, like, I've probably been taking this seriously for about 5-6 years now, and the first 5 game weeks, normally I think there's an international break stupidly quick, isn't there, this time around? But normally you get an international break after about 5 or 6 games, and you plan up until that point, but you've got to move fast because the prices change so rapidly in the first 3 game weeks. If you don't, even within a game week, you've got to make a sub straight away. Otherwise, before you know it, he's 0.1 more expensive and you can't afford him. Or you leave some money in the bank so you can sort of avoid that farce altogether. But
that's what I was going to say, is what a lot of people don't realise is that the ownership at the start of the game determines the speed of the increase or the decrease in value. So if you get somebody at the start that everyone thinks is going to be really good, but they've got a 20, 30, 40% ownership, as soon as a few people start selling them, the price of that player goes down a lot. And the first half of the season is all about value, about getting your team value up as much as you can, but it's about deciding how if it's worth risking doing that transfer early in the week when it could all change by Saturday when people start playing. So I think the first half of the season is actually it's more fun really, because it's about finding that value, and it's kind of like a stock market sort of thing as well. So you're you instead of betting money, you're betting points and free transfers on players going up and down in value. So it's a different game. In the second half of the season, when you've got a bit more information, you know how the teams are set up, you know the penalty takers are, you know how teams are playing, you know who's in form, you know who you next Cole Palmer or Gordon are. I mean, the only reason I won last year is I had Gordon and Palmer in from day one, and I don't think I'll be able to do that again, because nobody thought that they were going to have any sort of half-decent season. I put them in as differentials. For the first half, first quarter of the season, they were sat on my subs bench, getting points, going up in value. I didn't really feel like I should put them in my team. It was only later on when they became must-haves and they were first ones on the team sheet. But then, like I said, that's what the first half of the season is. Then the second half of the season, it's just looking at the fixtures and trying to prioritise who you're going to pick and who you can bring in.
I think those boosters are key as well, aren't they? Because I've always historically kind of used them far too early. That triple captain, that boost bench, those things that get you those extras. I have completely failed every single year to use them to any kind of maximum effect. And I think use them right. And you're right, try and save those to the back end of the season when you know a little bit more about what's going on. I've always used them in the first few weeks. I'm I want to beat Spence. I want to be first. And there was a point last season where I was top of the league for 1 week, and then boom, straight back down to the bottom, and it just didn't provide any kind of benefit at all.
Yeah, well, that's the double gamer weeks have had a massive influence. So in fact, my strategy for the last couple of years has basically been all about the double gamer weeks and planning ahead to utilise those games, because if you can get more people playing, you can get more points. This year, it's going to be very different because of the FA Cup. Basically, there's not going to be any FA Cup replays this year. So most of the double gamer weeks come around because of replays, FA Cup replays, and it's not going to happen this year. So this year it might be that there isn't a single double game a week at all. It depends. Something might happen, but basically, that's something to be aware of.
So that's really interesting. I've always thought the double game weeks. I totally agree that you've got to try and maximize it, but there's just always disappointing somehow. If you've got the top players, and as you go deeper in the season as well, particularly the clubs that are in Europe and they're in, the risk of rotation, it gets really high, doesn't it? And I'm a triple captain Salah. I was really annoyed about this. Actually, I think this might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, because I genuinely thought everything was going my way up to this point. Triple captain Salah took a punt. Everyone else went with Haaland, and he did nothing. Salah got 2 goals, I think, in the first game, or a goal and assist, and raked in the points. And then I think they were playing someone awful midweek, and he just got benched. And I thought, and the thing is, Liverpool needed the wins at that point. I mean, they were, I thought there was no way they're going to drop Salah if they need at least until I think it was Luton actually. They played Luton and they beat them 5-1 or something, and Salah didn't play. And that was when I realised, I was like, the gamble's just not paid off here. It's not enough.
I think I remember that. I think the actual straw that broke the back was there was a 1 week where there was only like 3 games, and everybody, including yourself, used the free hit just to try and cover some more players in that game. And it was historically the lowest scoring week ever.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was that as well. Yeah.
And then I saved mine for like 2 weeks after for a double game a week where I literally got the full squad in, and I got like about 80 points just from doing that. It was the highest scoring week ever.
It's stupid, isn't it? Because mathematically, it shouldn't make a difference. So, like, if you don't field 11 players in one game where you can get a horrendous score versus play theoretically 11 players who you think are going to play 2 games, but actually only 4 or 5 of them play 2 games and the rest of them get subbed or benched, or it's a gamble, isn't it? I remember agonizing about that one. I just have this thing about I just can't not field 11 players. You have to at least try and field a team every week. But
it's a game of luck as well. Don't forget. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
I mean, you've just got to. I mean, it is no luck that the people who do well at it every year are the same people, and they play at a different, higher level than most of us do. But at the end of the day, you can't feel too bad about it. The other thing as well, you can't get every point. So most people get really annoyed when somebody's not in their team scores loads of points. I don't get annoyed by that. I think actually it's given me a bit more information that they might be good for playing in 2 weeks' time, or whatever like that. So I'll try transferring them for that. But yeah, that's the other thing. People think you're going to get every single point every single time somebody gets a hat trick. If they're not in your team, you're screwed. But nah, you just got to get on with it, and it's a long game. Again, like the championship, it's a war of attrition. It's like it's just never ending. It just keeps going. Yeah. But yeah, you're only actually interested in playing it though if you're interested in watching the games. I mean, I find it so much easier to play Fantasy Premier League when Leeds are in the Premier League, because I'm not thinking about with my team in mind.
Yeah,
thinking about
that's a big thing. Yeah.
Just having a look at some of the prices, trying to figure out who's good value, who's bad value. Gordon is only 7.5 million.
Well, it was only 5.5 last year.
Well, that's 7.5 that still feels pretty good value for me. I quite like a budget player.
Yes,
it's got to be in there.
5. It depends who you got. So I mean, my biggest and the biggest thing to decide is if you want Salah and if you want Haaland, or if you want both of them. Because if you want both of them, you're not really going to get anyone like your Sons or anybody like your Palmers. You need to find those. I mean, my pick for a budget differential this year is Rodgers for Aston Villa. I'm thinking of getting him in the team. Whether he plays or not is a different story, but he's 5 million. You need to get a couple of 4 million defenders in there if you're going to get any of your big dogs up there. I've got a couple of people I'm going to risk on, but I'm not going to tell you. You can find out.
Just keep it close to his chest.
Yeah, but you can't really tell much from friendlies, though, can you? Because most of the teams playing friendlies now, it's players who didn't play in international football.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty, isn't it? You can't kind of realistically choose a team until literally just before, because you don't know who's going to be playing, who's going to get injured, who's going to transfer to different teams and stuff like that. It is hard at this stage. What are we? Literally just under a month out from the first game of the season, and it is hard. Yeah, it is hard at this point, and I think everybody's going to have multiple different versions of their back team that they're going to start with for that first game week, and sacrifices are going to have to be made, aren't they? You never know what's going to happen. Trying to get those big hitters in. Do you sacrifice your subs bench for those big hitters, or do you put those big hitters in? And it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah, there's been a few changes this year as well. So I'm thinking of going a bit less in defence this year. So I've always relied on my wing backs. So your defenders are pretty much playing as midfielders, scoring goals and getting a lot of assists. This year, I think teams are playing with less wing backs now as a whole. They play with more like 2 holding midfielders in the back 4 again, and wingers. But also with the team, the way the scoring is working. So I think when a team loses, so a lot of the points are bonus points. So defenders will get less bonus points this year, and there will be more attacking bonus points. So I think you get extra points for being fouled, and you get extra points for doing this, that, or the other. It's still 3-2-1, but the way those points are distributed is going to be a bit more focused on the attackers.
Is that a good thing?
Well, I think it means you want to try and find defenders who you're not relying on clean sheet points or like centre backs. You try to find defenders who are playing out of opposition or a bit more attacking teams. They might let goals in, but you want to allocate more money to your attacking players because they're going to have more bonus. That's the way I'm thinking about it anyway. Still trying to now whether to get Trent in there though, because he's a points magnet.
7 million as well. 7 million for Trent, whose price hasn't changed for ages.
It's gone down. I think it was 7.
Was it 7.5 last year? Yeah.
And the other thing is, so for me, right now I've got not a single Arsenal player in my team. Last year, it were either 1 or 2 Arsenal defenders in the team at all times, and Saka. This year, I've not got a single Arsenal player. I've tinkered with Havertz up front, but then I've got a feeling Jesus might be playing up front again this next year, and it's just a bit, and the fixtures don't look too good. So, but all the defenders are just too expensive because I think they'll get clean sheet points, but they won't get many attacking points.
Wow, it's interesting, isn't it?
You can see the pain on Shep's face right there when you said no Arsenal players in the defence. It's hurting him a little bit.
It's a pain for me as well. But this is what I actually think this year is going to be really good because of the way that they've priced certain players. I think it's going to be a lot more exciting. You just can't get everybody with the same team, which is
how it should be. That's how it should be. You should have to choose. I mean, Haaland has been underpriced for the last 2 years. I mean, they should have just, in fact, 50. They probably could have even gone higher. I don't know. Like I love the fact that people now have to seriously. I mean, 15 million, you can get a very good midfielder and a very good defender for that price. For the price of one player. So you've really got to, and what will be even more interesting is if he doesn't play well for the first few games, people will be sat there thinking, I've got £15 million burning a hole in my team here that isn't getting the return that it needs.
And then his value goes down as well. And then it's like, but what I'm thinking is if you don't get him in to start with and he goes out and he scores 2 hat-tricks in the first 2 weeks, how do you then get him in? It's impossible. You've got to either get him in day one or just live with the fact that he might score a lot of points.
Take a 4-point hit.
No, well, you can't take a 4-point hit. You'll have to sell pretty much all your team to get that much money.
You need,
it's hard, isn't it?